Having children is a blessing, and I always tell people this. So if you're ever thinking about having kids and you're really not sure, you know what you want to do? Make a trip to Disneyland. You'll give yourself a vasectomy. You know what? You'll do it right there in the Magic Kingdom, too. You'll knock over Mickey getting to the food court so you can grab a plastic knife. Like, oh. Please make it stop. I don't know if you saw my last show, too. I did a bit about all the pillows on the bed and how it drives guys. Remember that one, too? It was very popular. I was in Bed Bath & Beyond recently. Down the aisle from me, I heard a couple having this exact argument, and the guy was really being mean to his wife. He took it way too far, and he was just yelling at her. He's going, I don't know why we're spending all this money on these unnecessary decorations. You know we don't have money for these unnecessary decorations. The backsplash, the valance, the window treatments. This is a waste of money. I'm like, all right, that's enough. Anyway, a few minutes later, I'm out in the parking lot. I'm getting ready to leave. They come walking out together. They go over to his giant pickup truck that's jacked this high off the ground with huge knobby tires and a chrome roll bar and a chrome running board and every piece of custom equipment you can put on a truck. I roll down the window and go, hey man, I like your truck. He goes, thanks, bro. I go, it looks like you got that thing covered in unnecessary decorations.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Wasdin Wednesday, August the 9th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the daily declaration for spiritual warfare and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Hugh-Hewitt, Liz Peek, Greenies, My Take, Loyalty, No Free Lunch, The Rape of the Mind, Donald Trump, Heritage Action, Newsmax, and SEAL Team 6. All that and more when I get back. Hi, I'm Ron, and I'm tired of watching the good guys lose all the time. I'm tired of listening to the good guys making stupid mistakes. We, conservatives, and to a lesser degree Republicans, can and should win and win all the time. Neutrality is dead. We're all biased. Without bias, there can be no loyalty. Without bias, there can be no integrity or credibility. The bad guys, however you care to define them, socialist, lefty, communist, liberal, rhino, are the people that act neutral. The people that act neutral with regard to insanity, stupidity, immorality, treason, and ugliness. Neutrality is treasonous. Loyalty is what cultural and political arguments come down to. Loyalty to values. Loyalty to the right, the good, and the beautiful. Back in a minute. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Freedom.
Thank you. And now there's no free lunch. 250 Economic Truths by David-Bahnsen.
The universe is full of dots. Connect the right ones and you can draw anything. The important question is not whether the dots you picked are really there, but why you chose to ignore all the others. Russ Roberts. One of the most profound insights in the book. Standing in the way of the knowledge that may enable authoritarians to command the affairs of society is not merely the lack of basic information, but also the inability to discern what they do see. The knowledge problem extends to what cannot be known and what cannot be understood in proper context from what is seen.
And that was There's No Free Lunch by David-Bahnsen. Back in a minute. Thank you. What are the true conservative suggested federal political priorities? Number 1, recognize that the government has no rights. 2, defund Planned Parenthood. 3, replace the Affordable Care Act. 4, institute zero-based budgeting. 5, prohibit collective bargaining for all public employees. 6, assign criminal and civil liabilities to all government regulators. 7, immediately repeal the Patriot Act. 8, immediately repeal all emergency dictator laws. 9, reinstate writs of outlawry. 10, use taxpayer funds to sponsor recalls, ballot initiatives, and referendums. 11, create a flexible minimum wage. 12, means test health care. 13, immediately and permanently prohibit investment banking by any office holder. And 14, make nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons obsolete. Back in a minute. Thank you. I'm listening to Hugh-Hewitt, and Hugh-Hewitt was talking with a brand new senator from Nebraska. And so Hugh-Hewitt has really got his underwear in a wad over Senator Tuberville's refusal to promote people in the military. I guess the Senate has something to do with has to confirm promotions to the rank of 06. So if you're going from lieutenant colonel to full bird, that kind of thing. So and he refuses to do it for basically political reasons. And I don't remember exactly what the issue is, but it's basically saying to the administration, you have to do certain things. Once you've done those things, then I will go ahead and we will, our committee will go ahead and vote on or whatever it is that needs to be done here to get these people promoted. Now, so Mr. Hewitt says, well, calls it a disaster for national security, and then wants the junior senator to go and talk to Tuberville. So the thing that's at issue here for me is his Hugh Hewitt's arbitrary claim that this is a disaster for national security. It is an arbitrary claim. What do we do with arbitrary claims? We ignore them. He provides no evidence. He provides no proof whatsoever that this is any type of a disaster. It's like his claim about an arbitrary claim about a 350-ship Navy. So remember that. You don't have to accept an arbitrary claim from our enemies, and you certainly don't have to accept it either from people that claim to be our friends. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the rape of the mind.
The common retreat from reality. This excursion into a world of pathology is not a description of a merely coincidental resemblance between a disease and a political system. It should serve to point up the fact that totalitarian withdrawal behind official justifications and individual fantasy is something that can occur either in social life or inside the individual mind. And many scholars believe in a relationship between cultural deterioration and schizophrenic withdrawal. Let us briefly explain the individual schizophrenic's reaction of complete inner automation and mental withdrawal as a personal failure to adjust to a world experienced as insecure and dangerous. Often, rather simple emotional incidents may lead to such schizophrenic retreat. For instance, the intrusion of schedules and habits forced on the mind during infancy, or a sly hypersensitivity to our overactive and over-verbose culture. Many a child is forced into schizophrenic withdrawal by an overcompulsive parent. Sometimes, lack of external contact may drive a man into a state of utter loneliness and isolation. Sometimes his own preference for solitude. A certain tendency to so-called schizophrenic withdrawal has been proved to be inborn, yet it can be provoked in everybody. Whatever the cause, the schizophrenic patient becomes a desocialized being, lost in loneliness. Conscious and unconscious fantasy life begins to become dominant over alert confrontation of reality. In the end, his weird fantasies become more real for the schizophrenic than the actual world. He hides more and more behind his own iron curtain, in the imaginary dreamland and retreat he has built for himself. This is his nirvana, in which all his dream wishes are fulfilled. Inertia and fanaticism alternate. The patient regresses to an infantile, vegetative form of behavior and rejects everything that society has taught him. In his fantasy, he lives in a world which always obeys his commands. He is omnipotent. The world turns around according to his divine inclinations. Reality, requiring as it does continual and renewed adjustment and verification, becomes a persecutor, attacking his illusion of divine might. Every disturbing intrusion into his delusional world is encountered by the schizophrenic, either with tremendous aggression or with the formation of secondary delusion to protect the first delusion, or with a combination of both. The schizophrenic displays tremendous hostility toward the real world and its representatives. Reality robs him both of his delusions of omnipotence and his hallucinatory sense of being utterly protected, as he was in the womb. Clinical experience has shown that the disease of schizophrenia often begins with negativism, a defense against the influence of others, a continual fight against mental intrusion, against what is felt as the rape of the oversensitive mind. Gradually, this defensive attitude toward the world becomes a hostile attitude toward everything, not only toward influences from the outside, but also toward thoughts and feelings from the inside. Finally, the victim becomes paralyzed by his own hostility and negativisms. He behaves literally as though he were dead. He sits unmoving for hours. He may have to be force-fed, force-dressed. The schizophrenic moves like a puppet on a string only when someone compels him to. Clinically, we call this catatonia, the death attitude.
And that was The Common Retreat from Reality from the Rape of the Mind by Joost-Meerlo, MD. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now on Stuart Varney, there's a somebody that's on his show on a regular basis named Liz Peake, who I usually have some respect for and I like, but as of now, I no longer do. And I'm going to play this clip, and you can find out why.
Response, and maybe we'll do something else, he says. This is your latest op-ed, Liz. You say both Trump and Biden should drop out of the race. Make your case, Liz.
Well, look, I think it would be, first, very good for the country. Our country's politics now are mired in hatred and anger. Everybody thinks the other guy is a bad guy. Nobody is voting because they admire their candidate, but rather because they hate the other candidate. That's a pretty horrible place to be. But let's look at it from the point of view of Donald Trump. He's got 3 indictments already under his belt, a 4th one pending. So far this year, actually in the first half of this year, he spent $40 million on legal fees, Stuart, and it's only going to get worse. Is this really a great place for our former president to find himself? No. If he could retire gracefully, he would still be a mega kingpin in the Republican Party. He could be revered for doing what I think is right for the country. And let's talk about Joe Biden.
No, let's not talk about Joe Biden. Let's go ahead and this is exactly what I'm talking about. I've said it before, where the whole point of all of these prosecutions that I'm sure that Liz Peake supports, obviously, she doesn't say one negative word about any of the prosecutions. She acts as if these are absolutely correct. but the whole point of these prosecutions is to put pressure on Donald Trump to quit the race. And now she is adding to that pressure. She's supposed to be a Republican, but I guess she's a Trump hater. She must be. That's the only thing I can think of. Anyways, so she is now trying to encourage Donald Trump to quit the race. And what I've said before, the worst thing he can do, the absolute worst thing that President Trump can do is quit the race. Because if he does so, it's tantamount to a confession. It's tantamount to a confession that he is wrong on everything. It's like going into court and pleading guilty on all the charges against him. And once he quits, the Democrats and Republicans that hate him, all the Trump haters, will use it as an excuse to simply expunge his record and pretend that the Donald Trump presidency never happened. That's what they want to happen. They don't want to go to court. A lot of these court cases are flimsy. All of them are flimsy. There's a very good chance he's going to beat them. He beats them, he becomes an even bigger big shot in American politics. They don't want that. And they don't want, even if they can get a conviction, they know that 75 million Americans are not going to accept it. Hopefully, none of the electorate will accept convictions of Donald Trump. All the right-thinking people in this country will realize that the fix is in. Now, one other thing that I wanted to comment on, she said, well, everybody's voting not for their candidate, but against the other candidate. Bullshit. I'm throwing the bullshit flag right here. If she's a liar, there's no way you can look at Donald Trump rallies, 10, 20,000 people, overflow crowds, and tell me that people are not voting for Donald Trump, but merely voting against Joe Biden. It's a fucking lie. She's a liar. She deserves to be ignored. Back in a minute. Thank you. And on Stuart Varney, another vocabulary lesson here.
Republicans are panning the White House plans, claiming they hurt the U.S. economy and national security both.
So not only are we seeing this president propose a plan that's absolutely pie in the sky for all these greenies.
There we go. The word is greenies. Never, ever. The Greens, whether they're Green Party or whatever, call themselves that deliberately. If you say the Greens or the Green Party, or in this case the greenies even, and you're standing in opposition to these people, what are you confessing? It's like using the term progressive. I should not, and I do the best I can not to use the term progressive. I call them Crowleyists instead, because if I concede and call them progressives and I say I'm in opposition to the progressives, what does that make me by default? Regressive. Okay? If we want to win, it's very simple, very easy. We have to watch what we say, use the right vocabulary, and if we do that, we can win every day, all day. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Stuart Varney's My Take.
Good morning. Now this. 24 hours ago on this program, Fox reporter Bill Malugin showed us astonishing pictures from the border. Armed cartel members walking into our country. They were carrying rifles. Some were wearing body armor. They looked like shock troops. What on earth are they doing here? Last night, migrants rushed the border crossing in Brownsville, Texas. We are told it was a stunt organized by an artist. Oh, we're very reassured. New York City is in crisis mode. Migrants still sleeping on the streets of Manhattan. The city has taken over a local sports complex to build facilities for 2,000 men. There's talk of a tent city in Central Park. Massachusetts has declared a state of emergency. Migrants have filled every available space in state shelters. And where's the president? He went to the Grand Canyon, but not to the border. He didn't talk to the locals who've been overrun. He didn't see the streets lined with fentanyl zombies. He doesn't want anything to do with the problem he created. It's on us now. Every state has become a border state. We will have to figure out what to do as the numbers keep going up, and they will keep going up. Central America is on its way, and once they're here, there is no way they're going back. In a way, Biden has won. This is exactly what he wanted.
And again, this is an issue that's easy to win. It's really easy to win. It's about framing. The left has been able to frame this argument as being one of compassion. That's why they refer to these folks as migrants. Okay, and we cannot win an argument in opposition to compassion, obviously. But we can win an argument all day, every day, in opposition to lawlessness. So we have to frame the argument as one of law enforcement. And we do that with the use of vocabulary, proper vocabulary, such as illegal immigrants or any other type of word or words that are lend themselves to a law enforcement argument. You could say robbers, thieves, and it's true because if they break into this country to get a job, the job they get is stolen from somebody who has the right to be here, be it a citizen or a green card holder. So we can win the argument. We have to frame it as a law enforcement argument and quit calling them migrants. Start calling them what they are, illegal immigrants. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Donald Trump.
As soon as they came back, they approved that. That was one of the first things on their list. They approved it. So now they're doing a lot of things that shouldn't be done. If you talk to the real generals, not the television generals, the real generals, we got some. Hey, look, I knocked out ISIS in a few weeks with real generals. We have a great military, but we're not going to let our military go woke, that I can tell you. But the real generals in the military, down a little bit, those guys are incredible. The way they did that, the way they took out a lot of bad people, but they took out ISIS, the ISIS caliphate, 100%, and it was surgical. It was incredible. We will get critical race theory and all other woke lunacy out of the United States Armed Forces. And we will abolish every Biden COVID mandate and rehire every patriot who was fired from our military with an apology and with back pay. And in addition, I will make it a personal mission to totally eradicate veterans' homelessness. I mean, you have a situation in America. It's a scandal. It's a disgrace. What's happening now is nobody's ever seen. And it is a national tragedy that Joe Biden, Crooked Joe, he's more interested in where's the money coming from. To him. He's interested to him. How about all these things with the 30 corporations and the this and the that, the money flowing in, everybody getting money coming in from China. How can you be tough in China when they're paying you a lot of money? And see, they know too much. You know, we have a compromise. We have a Manchurian candidate. They know too much. So he can't be tough in China. That's why he allows blimps flying over the country, right over our nuclear sites. Let them come in. Let them take pictures. Oh, don't do anything about it. They'll tell everybody who's giving me all that money. He's a compromised candidate. And I'll tell you something. Out of respect for the office of president, I didn't talk this way 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I felt very badly about what was going on. But out of respect for the office of the president, I wouldn't have said the way I talk. He's a crooked person. He's a totally dishonest guy. So we'd say things, but I even changed his name. I took it away from Hillary. We call him Crooked Joe. Instead of Sleepy Joe, we call him Crooked Joe. I retired it. That was a great day for Hillary. Instead of Crooked Hillary, I said, we're removing the name from Crooked Hillary. Now we call her Beautiful, Beautiful Hillary. She's a beautiful woman.
Thank you. And now the 3 reasons to impeach Secretary Mayorkas by the Heritage Action for America.
I'm going to lay out the case for impeaching Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas. He's violated his oath of office by releasing tens of thousands of illegal immigrants every month into the country and ignoring our immigration laws. He lied under oath to the American people and to Congress when he claimed that the border was closed. He abused his authority by threatening the sovereignty of the United States and putting the safety and security of Americans at risk. Please join Heritage Action by calling for the impeachment of Secretary Mayorkas.
And that was the 3 main reasons to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now Rob Schmidt on Newsmax.
Constitutional lawyer Mike Clancy joins me now. He says Biden should be charged with defrauding voters for his lies during the 2020 debates. Sir, thank you for coming on. I want to ask, your piece was fantastic. I want to ask you this, though. Do you think that this is a reasonable charge for Joe Biden, or are you simply saying this because of the way the DOJ is behaving towards Trump?
Yeah, thanks, Rob, for having me on. And first, let me just say, these recent revelations prove why elections matter. If the Republicans hadn't taken control of the House, the cover-up would still be on, and we would not have this testimony. We would not have the whistleblowers. We would not have the emails. But yes, I think there's 2 things. One is they're going after Trump for defrauding voters. Biden did the same thing. There's also a federal statute, a fraud statute, that provides for honest services from our political leaders, and certainly Biden has violated that. All the evidence shows that Biden has been corrupted in the Hunter Biden forced sale. He's the brand. He's been part of these meetings. All of the denials that we've heard for 5 years have turned out to be false. We have the collusion with the 51 former intelligence officials who spun a narrative that the Hunter laptop and the emails were all disinformation, Russian disinformation. That turned out to be all false, but was all part of an orchestrated conspiracy to keep the truth from the American people.
And you say that a charge could come with that could be, I guess, criminal in nature.
Well, I think so. With the honest services statute, that politicians have been prosecuted under the honest services statute for corruption. So, as the evidence leads, but this is why we need an independent investigation.
Yeah.
We have to get this out of the hands of the Justice Department. We need an independent investigation. We need a special counsel to take this evidence that the House Oversight Committee and Judiciary Committee have developed and go and investigate this. At the same time, as you mentioned earlier, it's time for the Judiciary Committee to start looking at impeachment.
Yeah. Well said on that. Today, the judge in Florida, I want to flip it over and talk about Trump here for a moment. The Florida dox case against former President Trump, delivering quite a blow to Jack Smith. Eileen Cannon asking the defense to raise possible grand jury abuse by the DOJ for using a highly partisan, as we know, D.C. grand jury for what appears to be, it's a Florida case. But you're going to get a very, very good grand jury if you're Jack Smith and you're trying to indict Trump in Washington, D.C. What can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, I think, he knows what he's doing. I mean, he prosecuted Bob McDonnell, then got reversed 9-0 by the Supreme Court, former governor of Virginia. Yeah. So, he's on the attack. He's going to leverage this to his advantage and to Trump's disadvantage. So absolutely, I agree. It's not a great venue, and he's manipulating the process in order to take advantage of the D.C. venue.
Yeah. All right. Mike Clancy, we appreciate you coming on.
And that was Mike Clancy, who is the guest of Newsmax. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, SEAL Team 6.
6. SEAL Team 2. After airborne training, I reported to my SEAL team. The odd-numbered teams, 1, 3, and 5, were on the West Coast at Coronado, California, and the even-numbered teams, 2, 4, and 8, were on the East Coast at Little Creek, Virginia. Although the top-secret SEAL Team 6 existed, I knew nothing about it. I reported to SEAL Team 2 in Little Creek. During a Wednesday run on the obstacle course, a nearly 60-year-old SEAL still on active duty ran with us, Rudy Besch. I thought I could take it easy, no instructors around yelling at us. At the end of the course, Rudy pulled aside all of us who finished behind him. Meet me back up here this afternoon. That afternoon, the Slowpokes and I ran the O course again. It was a wake-up call. Even in the teams, it paid to be a winner. Later, I would become one of the fastest men on the O course at Team 2. Rudy soon served as the first senior enlisted advisor of the newly formed United States Special Operations Command, USSOCOM, commanding Navy, Army, Air Force, and Marine Special Operations units, including those in JSOC, such as SEAL Team 6 and Delta. After more than 45 years in the Navy, most of it as a SEAL, Rudy retired. When he reached his 70s, he competed on the reality TV series Survivor. Some Team 2 guys returned from deployment on an oil barge called the Hercules, one of two in the Persian Gulf. They were a part of Operation Praying Mantis. When an Iranian mine damaged the USS Samuel B. Roberts, one of the SEALs' missions was to capture an Iranian oil platform that had been launching attacks against ships in the Gulf. The SEALs planned for a Navy destroyer to shoot up the platform with armor-piercing ammo in order to keep the Iranians' heads down. Then the SEALs would land on the helipad and take down the platform. Unfortunately, someone on the destroyer loaded incendiary and high-explosive rounds instead. When the destroyer opened fire on the platform, it literally opened fire. Instead of keeping their heads down, the Iranians promptly jumped off the burning platform. The barge burned so hot that the SEALs couldn't land their helo on it. The barge melted into the sea. Oops. Dick, Mike H., Rob, and I hadn't participated in that op because we still had more training to do. But that didn't stop us from wanting to celebrate the guys' safe return. After work, we left the SEAL Team 2 compound, exited the Little Creek Base's Gate 5, and headed to a little strip club called the Body Shop. Because the Body Shop was in such close proximity to the SEAL Team 2 compound, a number of us had spent some time there. The bouncer was a new guy, sitting in for Bob, a SEAL Team buddy. One of us asked him, "A group of our guys just got back from the Persian Gulf. Can you give them a congratulations over the PA?" So he did. "Let's send out a big thank you to our American fighting men who just returned from the Persian Gulf." Applause and cheers filled the room. We high-fived each other, buying beers. From the back of the room, where a table of 4 Tunisian men sat, one said in fluent English, "Why doesn't America mind its own damn business?" Dick didn't go around the runway where the girls were dancing. He went straight over it. By the time I ran around it and got to the 4 men, Dick had the loudmouth in a chokehold. During our brief altercation, the 3 buddies of the loudmouth shouted expletives at their comrade. The 4 of us left the 4 Tunisians in a pile. As we attempted to leave, the new bouncer tried to stop us. "You just had a fight in here. You're not going anywhere." We catapulted him over the bar. At the front door, a police officer showed up. He must have been right around the corner because it had only been 5 minutes since the fight had started. "Come on, gentlemen, let's just sit down for a minute." So we did. This guy seems cool. The bouncer had picked himself up and cut in. "These guys are Navy SEALs. They just came in here and were tearing up the place." Oh, no. He said the S word. The officer panicked, calling on his radio. "Navy SEALs are tearing up the place and I need backup." We were sitting down calmly talking to him. That was enough. We stood up to leave. "Wait, you can't go anywhere." Ignoring him, we walked to the front door. Outside, a sea of blue lights flashed at us from the parking lot. The backup included a large police van with K9 unit written on the side. The first officers stepped out of their vehicles. We started to explain. The policeman from inside cut off our explanations, suddenly becoming brave. "I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come with me." He grabbed Mike by the shirt sleeve. Dick caught the policeman in the chin with a square blow, dropping him straight down. Now police officers with batons faced the 4 of us with our bare hands. We fought for what seemed like 10 or 15 minutes. On TV, batons might drop people to the pavement, but these batons were bouncing off of us. The police dog jumped up and bit Dick. He grabbed the dog by the head, bent it over, fell down on top of it, and bit a plug out of the dog. The dog yelped and ran away. I was fighting the two cops in front of me when I felt a little thud on my back. Turning around with my fist cocked back, I saw that a small female police officer had just hit me with her baton. It felt like a mosquito bite compared to the whacks the other cops were delivering. Realizing she was a woman, instead of punching her, I picked her up and pushed her onto the hood of her car. Now there were nearly 30 cops against the four of us. We finally lost. They handcuffed us. We told them our story. The Tunisian guys had walked out of the body shop and resumed talking their anti-American rhetoric. Now the police were mad at the first officer. What were you thinking? Are you crazy? What was done was done. We had assaulted cops. They separated us and loaded us into the back of the patrol cars. The female police officer stuck her phone number in the pocket of my shirt and said, "Hey, give me a call sometime." At the station, they processed us and gave us a court date. They contacted our command at SEAL Team 2. The police wouldn't let us leave until SEAL Team 2 sent a driver to pick us up. When our court date came, I feared for my job. We were all new to the SEAL teams and expected our careers to be ruined. On the front row of the courtroom sat police officers wearing neck braces. One had his arm in a cast, another had a cane. They looked like fertilizer. In our dress blue uniforms, we looked like $1 million. Voted by my teammates to be spokesman, I told the judge our side of the story. The people in the courtroom seemed sympathetic toward us because of what happened and how it happened. The judge asked, "Why were 3 of these men taken to jail and immediately released, and Petty Officer Dick wasn't released until later?" The canine officer explained, "The dog bit him, and we had to take him to the doctor for a shot." "How long could that have taken?" the judge asked. "Well, Your Honor, he took a bite out of my dog, so I had to take my dog to the vet for a shot." The courtroom behind us erupted in laughter. The canine officer explained, "Your Honor, it really isn't funny. It took me months to train him, and I still spend 16 hours a month training him. But since Petty Officer Dick bit the dog, it won't do the job anymore." The laughter rose to sheer pandemonium. Down came the judge's gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" Except for a couple of snickers in the back of the courtroom, the noise calmed down. "Now, the 4 of you need to step forward to the bench," the judge said. Oh, man. Lose our careers, go directly to jail, do not collect $200. We were scared. The judge leaned forward and then spoke quietly and calmly. "Gentlemen, I'm going to write this off to youthful vigor and patriotism, but don't ever let me see you in this courtroom again." I heard applause from the courtroom behind us. Turning around, I saw the cops in the front row. They looked like thieves had just robbed their houses. On our way out, I passed the cop in a neck brace and the one with a cane. As I passed the police officer with his arm in a cast, I winked at him. We left the courtroom. Back at SEAL Team 2, we reported what happened to the Team 2 skipper, Norm Carley, a short Irish Catholic guy from Philadelphia, graduate of the Naval Academy and the first executive officer, second only to the commanding officer of SEAL Team 6. Recently, the SEAL Team 2 skipper had returned from Operation Praying Mantis in the Persian Gulf. He looked at us for a moment. "There was a time when we used to go out and fight the cops a lot. Those days are coming to a rapid end. The military is changing." He let us go, and his prophecy came true. The modern military has changed. On March 31st, 2004, Ahmed Hashim Abed, an Iraqi al-Qaeda terrorist, orchestrated the ambush of empty trucks picking up kitchen equipment from the Army's 82nd Airborne. Abed's terrorists killed 4 Blackwater guards, then burned the corpses, mutilated them, dragged them through the streets, and hung 2 of the bodies from the Euphrates Bridge. One of the 4 guards was former SEAL Scott Helvenston. On September 1st, 2009, the SEALs captured Abed. Then 3 other SEALs received courts-martial for allegedly giving him a bloody lip. Although the 3 SEALs were eventually found not guilty, such charges never should have risen to the level of courts-martial. If the SEALs had simply killed Abed, nothing could have been said. It's hard to lawyer up when you're dead. In the same building as the body shop was a 7-Eleven. My house was 2 miles away. One evening after dinner, when Blake was still 4 years old, I drove with him to the 7-Eleven around 7 o'clock to get some milk and bread. At the same time, Smudge pulled up in his Ford Bronco pickup truck jacked up on big wheels and big suspension. We had become friends after I joined him in Foxtrot Platoon at SEAL Team 2. Smudge walked over and, as usual, picked up Blake and gave him a hug. As he held Blake, I said, "I'm just going to run in and get some milk and bread. I'll be right out." When I came back out with the groceries, they were gone. I looked at the body shop. Smudge's girlfriend was a stripper there. Oh, no, he didn't. When I hurried in, the bouncer greeted me. "Evening, Howard." "Hey, Bob," I said. "Need to see if my son is in here." He smiled, letting me pass without paying the cover charge. Walking into the club, it was mostly dark except for light coming from the center stage where a dancer shook her assets. Smudge sat at a table with his foot up on the stage while Blake sat on his lap. Smudge's topless girlfriend stood next to them, bent over, running her fingers through Blake's hair and stroking his cheek. "You're such a cutie." Her breasts were so huge, it's a wonder she didn't put my son's eyeballs out. I grabbed Blake, yelling at Smudge as I left. "Man, are you crazy? You're going to get me killed." He couldn't see what the problem was. "I just wanted to introduce him to Cassandra." I helped Blake into the car and tried to debrief him on our way home. This is going to be it. Smudge is one of my good friends, and he loves Blake. But if Laura finds out, I'll never be able to have Smudge around my child again. At home, luckily, Laura was busy working in the kitchen. I took Blake to his room and occupied him with his Nintendo Duck Hunt game. Then I put away the milk and bread I picked up from the 7-Eleven. I went into the living room and studied some op orders and SEAL training manuals, as I often did, but I had my eye on the clock, waiting for Blake's bedtime. If I could get him to bed, I'd be in the clear, at least until morning. Usually I was the one to tuck him in for the night, and when his bedtime came that evening, I made a point of walking to his room and tucking him in. Days later, Laura, Blake, and I drove by the body shop on the way to SEAL Team 2. Holy crap, is seeing the place going to trigger Blake to say something to Laura? "Hey, I saw some big boobies in there." Even for a couple of weeks after, I still worried. Fortunately, Blake never said another word about it until he was 12 or 13 years old, and I never went back to the body shop again. The first time Blake had a sip of beer, a team guy gave it to him. When he got older, we all played golf together. Blake's first driving lesson came on a golf cart with one of my drunken buddies, bouncing off of trees. Blake would later tell me, "Some of my best memories of Virginia are hanging out with the different guys." They were his SEAL team uncles who listened to Thin Lizzy's "The Boys Are Back in Town" and sometimes let him do things he shouldn't do. After a few months of limbo doing odd jobs around the SEAL Team 2 compound, I finally made it to advanced training in sea, air, and land warfare, known as SEAL Tactical Training, STT. While BUDS focused on screening out people and training the survivors, STT mostly focused on training. During the 6 months of STT, only 2 people were dropped because of poor performance. We learned advanced levels of diving and land warfare, including close quarters combat, CQC. For more on advanced training after BUDS, see Dick Couch's The Finishing School. When I completed STT, the SEAL Team 2 skipper, Norm Carley, came out with tridents and pinned one on me. The trident consisted of an eagle clutching a U.S. Navy anchor, trident, and pistol. Because it looked like the old Budweiser eagle, we often called the trident the Budweiser. Both officers and enlisted wore the same gold badge rather than following the common Navy practice of making enlisted men wear silver. It is still one of the biggest, gaudiest badges in the Navy. With his fist, Skipper gave it a smack on my chest. Then each member of my platoon came by and punched it in. The trident literally stuck so deep into my chest that the leading petty officer had to pull it out of my skin. The marks remained on me for weeks. Now I could officially play with the big boys. My first platoon commander was Bert. In the Navy, a sea daddy is someone who takes it upon himself to mentor a sailor. I never really had a sea daddy because I took advice, both tactical and personal, from a number of people. But I owed gratitude to Bert for drafting me into his winter warfare platoon right out of STT. SEALs were supposed to have served in a regular platoon before working in a winter warfare platoon, but Bert showed an early confidence in me. Like nearly 50% of SEAL officers, an extremely high percentage in the military, Bert had been an enlisted man before becoming an officer, what we call a Mustang, which is probably why I liked him so much. Never asked us to do anything he wouldn't do himself. He was big on doing proper mission briefs, thoroughly evaluating the brief and the resulting op. The man was a great facilitator and diplomat. Bert loved the winter environment, skiing, snowshoeing, and the rest, and leading the teams in high-tech winter warfare gear. For example, we tested and evaluated expeditionary weight Gore-Tex. Bert's second-in-command was Mark, who stood over 6 feet tall. Mark's parents emigrated from a Russian satellite country. Low-key, he didn't tell people he was an MIT graduate who spoke Russian, Czechoslovakian, Polish, and German. His security clearance took forever. Although highly intelligent and multilingual, he never talked down to us. Mark devised great plans, and he could explain them simply and clearly enough so everyone could understand. He spoke with a slight lisp, though, which we mimicked during his mission briefs, screwing with him. After work knocked off, give him a couple of drinks and a pretty girl on each side, and Mark's speech would become incomprehensible. At SEAL Team 2, 1 day a week, we did team physical training. Wednesday was O-Course Day. The other days, we ran our own PT. Some guys used those days as time to play basketball or goof off, but Mark insisted we bust our chops doing a long run, swim, run, or some other torture. He ran like a gazelle and swam like a fish, making those of us who couldn't keep up with him hate life. Although we enjoyed working with Mark. At SEAL Team 2, I started to hear whisperings about a top-secret SEAL Team 6. After the 1980 failed attempt to rescue American hostages at the U.S. Embassy in Iran, the Navy asked Richard Marcinko to create a full-time counterterrorist team. As its first commanding officer, Marcinko named the new unit SEAL Team 6. He recruited heavily from the SEAL's 2 counterterrorist units, Mobility 6, Mob 6, at SEAL Team 2 on the East Coast, and Echo Platoon at SEAL Team 1 on the West Coast. They wore civilian clothes and longer haircuts and were allowed to grow non-regulation beards and mustaches. Officers and enlisted men addressed each other by first names and nicknames, not using military salutes. They specialized in rescuing hostages from ships, oil rigs, and other maritime locations. In addition, they assisted with military base and embassy security. On top of all that, Team 6 also supported CIA operations. Team 6's baptism of fire came in 1983. After communists allied with Cuba and the Soviet Union overthrew the government of Grenada in a bloody coup d'etat, the United States launched Operation Urgent Fury to restore Grenada's government. In support of the operation, 12 shooters from SEAL Team 6 would parachute drop off the coast of Grenada. This first mission was a goat screw for at least 3 reasons. First, although SEAL Team 6 had trained intensively in numerous counter-terrorist tactics, they had not trained in nighttime water drops, which is even more difficult with boats. A mission that probably should have gone to SEAL Team 2, who were standing by, went to SEAL Team 6 instead. Second, intelligence was crap. The mission was planned without taking into account daylight saving time. As a result, that hour difference made a daytime drop turn into a nighttime drop. Not even the moon was out. No one told the Team 6 guys about the 10-foot ocean swells, high winds, and hard rain. Third, probably because the Air Force pilots weren't experienced with water drops, the second plane dropped the SEALs in the wrong spot, far from everyone else. As a result, when the 12 men hit the water, the wind continued blasting their parachutes, dragging them. With too much equipment and not enough buoyancy, some of the SEALs were sinking. Although they had practiced with high-tech parachutes, now they were using old MC-1 chutes. The guys fought for their lives to keep the parachutes from dragging them to watery graves. Without lights, gathering everyone together became impossible. One SEAL kept shouting and fired 3 shots into the night, but no one could reach him. A total of 4 SEALs disappeared. The survivors searched, but they never found their teammates. Kenneth Butcher, Kevin Lundberg, Stephen Morris, and Robert Schamberger. Although heartbroken, the other SEALs still had a mission to do. Black Hawk helicopters raced for an hour through the early morning darkness to the Governor General's mansion to rescue Governor General Paul Schoon. Soviet aircraft rounds carved green lines into the sky. Aboard one of the helos, the 15 SEALs crammed inside appeared calm until enemy fire started punching holes in the helo. Denny Snake Chalker and the others who had never been in combat dropped their poker faces. Vietnam veteran SEALs officer in charge Wellington T. Duke Leonard, Bobby L., Timmy P., and JJ smiled. How's it feel getting shot at? After a tense moment, Denny and the others smiled. What else could they do? The command helo carrying SEAL Team 6's commanding officer, Bob Gormley, Dick Marcinko's replacement, took the heaviest fire and had to break off from the others in order to limp back to the aircraft carrier before the wounded helo fell out of the sky. Duke and Denny's chopper flared its nose up to a stop 90 feet in the air in front of the mansion, while the other helo took the rear over the tennis court. One of the pilots was shot, but he continued flying. AK-47 fire popped at them from the mansion. A SEAL leaned out and fired back. Rich had been hit, but he was so pumped on adrenaline that he didn't notice. Denny kicked out the rope and fast roped to the back of the mansion, crashing through pine tree limbs on his way down. Duke and the others followed close behind, hitting the limbs Denny hadn't already broken. As Denny neared the mansion, an AK-47 poked out from a door in his direction. Denny held fire with his Car-15, forerunner of the M4 assault rifle, until he could identify the target. It was Governor Schoon. Duke, carrying a shotgun, relieved the governor of his weapon. The guys cleared the mansion, but only the governor, his family, and staff were inside. They set up a perimeter. RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, skipped across the top of the roof without exploding. Their satellite communications, SATCOM radio, had flown off in the wounded command bird, limiting communications, so they had to conserve the batteries in their handheld radios. Duke told everyone, don't challenge anyone unless they enter the compound. They didn't want to start a fight they couldn't finish. Rescuing the governor was the priority. As night began to fall, 30 enemy fighters and 4 Soviet 8-wheeled armored personnel carriers, BTR-60PBs, circled the mansion. Duke used his little MX-360 handheld radio to contact Master Chief Dennis Johnson at Port Salinas Airfield. The Master Chief relayed Duke's message to an AC-130 gunship flying overhead. Do a 360-degree firing run around the mansion. The Spectre fired its 40mm gun. Bloop, bloop. The resulting explosions took out the surrounding enemy except for 2 that ran. Soon, the little MX-360 radios ran out of power. Duke used the governor's telephone to maintain communications. 2 Cubans armed with AKs walked up the driveway. The Cubans raised their weapons, so the guys fired. Shotgun, Car-15s, Heckler & Koch 21 light machine gun, M60 machine guns, and a 50 caliber RAI 500, Research Armament Industries Model 500 sniper rifle. 1 Cuban tried to escape over a wall, but he and his comrade were literally cut down. The next morning, Force Recon Marines helped the SEALs, the governor, and his family out. They saw the charred remains of burned-out trucks, weapons, and blood where the Spectre had fired. Someone had removed the bodies. On their way out, the SEALs found a Grenadian flag, so they replaced it with a SEAL Team 6 flag, which someone always carried for such an occasion. Later, the guys would hang the Grenadian flag up at SEAL Team 6 when they returned. The entourage proceeded to a helicopter landing zone where a helicopter extracted everyone. On a separate mission in Grenada, 12 SEALs, led by Lieutenant Donald Kim Erskine, flew in a helo to the radio station, which they were to secure until Governor Schoon could come in and broadcast a message to the people on the island. While in the air, they received some small arms fire, but when they landed, the enemy had deserted the radio station. Erskine's men had radio problems and couldn't make contact with the command post. Someone had changed the frequencies without informing the SEALs. They set up a defensive perimeter. Before long, a truck arrived loaded with 20 enemy soldiers. The SEALs ordered them to drop their weapons, but they didn't. So the guys opened up on them, using about a third of their ammo, and killed 10 of the enemy. They took the surviving 10 as prisoners and used up most of their first aid supplies, patching them up in the radio station. None of the SEALs were wounded.
And that was part 1 of Chapter 6, SEAL Team 2 of the book SEAL Team 6 by Howard-Wasdin. Back in a minute. Thank you. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all of the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. And until next time, be honest, be smart, be beautiful, and remember that the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win.